Bitcoin's parabolic move towards $135,000 remains underway here, folks. Welcome back to DataDash. My name is Paul Sampson, and today is Monday, July 21st of 2025. And folks, today I got a jam-packed episode here for you as we're going to be breaking down everything on the macro term. As far as Bitcoin goes, we're going to take a look at the total market, the total two market. Ethereum has been ripping to the upside, which is taking dominance down from Bitcoin, helping to improve the total two market as well, where we are conclusively flipped a very key level that we've been looking to that would be indicating more continuation to the upside for not only Ethereum, but for the altcoins as a whole. And with Bitcoin projected to be continuing higher also, the market in general, in my opinion, is still poised to continue higher through the rest of this summer. I'm going to point out the main area that I'm looking to for the next sizable retracement, if we do see one, and the path that I see us taking to get there with a little bit of a short-term outlook just for the next few days here, as far as where we could pull back to for the key support regions for maybe a bounce that's going to lead us to that upside from the current price action, which sits at about $119,000 at the time of recording this video. So if all that stuff sounds great to you folks, be sure to grab yourself a cup of coffee, whether it's hot or iced, because I'm breaking it all down right now. So currently Bitcoin, as I stated in the beginning, we're trading at about $119,000. We've seen a really nice move off of that $74,000 low that has taken us right into our trend-based gold pocket of about 122,600, where we topped recently at 123,000. Are currently seeing a little bit of a pullback here. So you'll note I have just a few levels here marked on the chart, one of which being a major high time frame average that I do foresee us coming back to likely down the road, right, in the next coming months. I don't foresee that being a region that we just come right down to now, but that is something that I want to keep on everybody's radar for the time being. We have a previous week pivot is that what I wanted to highlight here. We'll get into that here in a bit as well. Obviously, we have our gold pocket, which has already been met now, and then you can see that I have highlighted the 1-to-1 for Bitcoin sitting at about 135,000, which I do believe is around the target region that we were on route for Bitcoin. Now, folks, this is a really big period in the crypto market, and what we see here at these levels, even at $100,000 plus, the ETF inflows have been such a useful guide and a tool that we did not have in the past. And it's just something that really does showcase the strength behind the institutions that are coming into this market. And not only have we seen time and time again ever since the ETFs have launched that the overall ETF flows have been positive net at the end of the day, right? There's been obviously some outflows. We've seen some corrections along the way, so I don't want to state the things that we're going to cover here in the sense of just, expect everything to go up only because we're seeing these heavy inflows. We've obviously seen big inflows all the way dating back to $70,000, and we did have multiple pullbacks along the way, even though we are currently trading higher. But here is the current stats as we see it. Now, HODL 15 Capital puts up a really nice report just about every day and every week, really. I like this one because it kind of highlights, not even kind of, it absolutely highlights the quarterly reports here as well. So basically, ever since the beginning of the ETF launch back in 2024, January, we have these quarterly reportings here to showcase how many ETFs have been purchased. How many Bitcoin have been purchased and are held in these ETFs. And you can see that it's been a slow progression along the way, 600,000 all the way up to 1.2 million here, which is one that we were looking at on our last quarter when we were trading live through that time frame, right, where we had April's tariff fears and all those things that really put a little bit of uncertainty around the market around that time. So kind of back to what I stated earlier, that it's not always just up only, even though we're seeing a consistent up flow. Granted, if you looked at the chart, it would match pretty nicely as well. At the moment, we did see multiple 30%, sometimes even deeper corrections around there. But I want to highlight this. So we had up until last quarter, we had about a 1.125 million here. We increased that by about 125,000 on one quarter over quarter. Okay, so for 3 whole months, we slowly kind of seen an acquisition of 125,000. It's only been 2 weeks here in July. So of the next quarter that we're currently building out now, only 2 weeks has been live here. And we're already up over 50,000 or just about 50,000 here in that short time period. There's been a lot of Bitcoin acquired during that time. And not only Bitcoin, but Ethereum as well. Ethereum has been absolutely on fire with the ETF acquisitions. It's seen the best month, it's seen the best weeks, the best days. The ETFs for Ethereum is looking a lot like Bitcoin did back in when we right before we saw that huge launch, right? And we'll take a look at Ethereum's chart today too. And let's actually just take a look at Ethereum now, because what a powerful move here we are seeing. We had this nice, I called it the stairs down and then the elevator up system, where you get that really slow progressive move to the downside. Sentiment is just in the gutter. This is where everybody's really dogging on Ethereum, calling it was a joke at this point. There's multiple memes. This is where you wanted to buy, right? At the end of the day. This was also where we had a sizable bullish harmonic setup that I've been pointing out for a couple months back. Okay, this is actually what allowed me to enter a shorter term position here along with my long-term spot bags, but I actually managed to pick up the exact low on a short-term leverage position, and I had two major targets. Even though I anticipated this to head higher, but for me, for a leverage position, I was very, very comfortable with taking profit heavily and scaling completely out at the gold pocket. And either way, we had a really nice move. We had two major targets, one of which being the 382. I don't have it pulled up here at the moment. It was the 382 retracement, basically just overall of this entire move down. Then the secondary one was our gold pocket here. And the gold pocket was crucial because if we push through that region, right, this is what I highlighted in the Discord as well, that if we got any higher than basically $3,100 on a daily closing basis, even as far as just down to a 4-hour, then it was very likely that we were going to make a challenge up towards that all-time high. 3,700 was going to be the next final little bump in the road. And what that is our most aggressive target of this setup, which is back to our C point here. All right. And then by no means is this an end all be all where we just have to hit the brakes at those levels. But if you're trading these actively, these would be how you would scale out of these positions here. Notable areas of resistance. And then, of course, once again, with the longer term plays, it's just one of those areas where if I'm building my longer term positions and I'm looking higher, I'm noting that there's going to be three major places where we may see some resistance, a little cool down before continuing higher. And that's how I would play that for any kind of long term. But we are now flipping that region here. There's no reason we wouldn't see a new all-time high out of Ethereum in the following weeks here. And folks, make no mistake, one of the few things I shared when I first joined this channel at the beginning of this year was the Ethereum versus BTC chart. And there was a sizable setup on there, basically a 6-year bullish reversal. And the idea of that is that when that did reverse, we would see about 1.5 to potentially 3 years of upside as that plays out and comes up to some sizable targets on Ethereum. And with Ethereum making these moves back to the upside now, seeing these aggressive 100, 200% moves here, it's obviously dragging up the remainder of the market as well. But that is what we want to see when you're looking for the altcoin market to see any more sizable upside as well. I would say don't chase anything heavily at these points. There are definitely some things that are still really, not towards the low side of their price action, their chart, things like that. Maybe I, scale into around these times where if I'm looking just if I had to get into something new, but otherwise, the overall idea here is that Ethereum pushing up to the upside is great for the market. Doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to go straight up from the exact moment we're talking right now, meaning that pullbacks are part of it, right? So it's always the big idea here is to always look for the retracements, look for pullbacks, always buy on a red day type of thing. And then on the flip side of that, if you're already invested into the market, just be aware that we're seeing some really exciting moves here. Don't be shocked if you see a 10-15% cool down right before we continue higher. Speaking of a very exciting time, right? So when we're looking at the sentiment in the market, the fear and greed is actually, and I think because of Bitcoin at the moment, if I had to guess, I assume it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be after seeing some, the way Ethereum has been pushing up and even some other altcoins. I think Dogecoin even had a sizable move to the upside. And for, the fear and greed for here it is in greed, don't get me wrong, but it's not really, we got more room to the upside, I guess is what I'm saying, which is once again, a good sign short term. If I'm entering the market new today, though, these are the things you want to kind of keep in mind is that the old saying, if be fearful when others are greedy. All right. Meaning that that's generally when somebody's looking to sell, when the market's getting into this greed territory, you want to be greedy when everybody else is fearful, right? Which was like in April when we had all the tariff woes at the exact lows. Stock market, mind you, this hasn't opened up yet, but this is ticking up a little higher, oddly enough, than crypto is. But everything's at all-time high. So essentially, this is not necessarily the most overbought indication at the moment, where I'm stating that when we see things like this, a lot of times the market will cool off once we're in these regions. So just be aware that we are there. It's just we could push higher, right? So like, yeah, I think that we still have some gas in the tank necessarily, if that's going to be the way we head. All right, so I'm going to cover a really brief little key area of support I'm looking to for Bitcoin in case we do get a pullback in the next coming days before continuing up more towards our recent all-time high of 123,000 and then towards that 135,000. I'm going to highlight again the time frame I anticipate us actually hitting 130.35. It's still actually a few weeks out. Not that that has to be perfect, but if it does hit around this time, it's going to trigger a sizable pullback, right? So if I'm looking for the next sizable retracement area in the market, I want to be aware of that. So because that's generally where we can protect ourselves across the board, or we can be preparing for some decent discounts, some red days, and prepare our strategy around that. So this is how I'd be looking at Bitcoin on a brief short-term outlook, and then more so on the higher time frame still. So once again, I've only got 4 key regions here mapped out for Bitcoin. We've already made it to the gold pocket here. So pushing any higher through that would give us the next, basically the confirmation that we're going to more than likely head up towards this 1-to-1, right? So it's at 135,000. I'd really venture to box off a region of 130 to 135. But that's what we'll target for now, right? So 135,000 overall. Short term, let's take a peek at where we could sneak the next entry locally, or at least just be aware that this is where we could come down to this week. And then still be in relatively good shape. Okay. So last week we were looking for 115 as that, basically the short-term region to look for that pullback. We're trading around here on our last video. We pulled back to 115.8. All right. So not necessarily 115 flat. Realistically, I was looking for the weekly pivot, which was 115.300, give or take. We did front run it last week. So, this week, while I don't generally look for old weekly pivots after the following session, I did like to see, or I did kind of like how this lined up with a few things here. So we have our quarterly VWAP coming in right here, which is the volume weighted average of price for this quarter. Mind you, this is just for July essentially. So it's just basically this month as well. So I guess you could look at it as the monthly VWAP as well. And it comes in right at that region. And then the biggest thing I like about this is, once again, we front ran this area last week. So now this is last week's low. So this week, anybody that's gotten into new long positions, anybody that's looking at this as maybe a little bullish pennant, right? They're coming into this region. Their stop loss is just below the low. And we all know how much this market loves the liquidity sweeps. So to come down, take out the lows here, tag that old pivot, bounce off of our VWAP. That's what I'd be looking for as far as the next major best little entry, or just to be aware that could happen for this week coming up. And now I'd even truly put this in a region as well, because once again, I'm not trying to get overly exact with some of these levels here. So if I was looking for this to be, this would definitely be the level that if I did come see the price action come down, doesn't matter how deep it got, but if we reclaim that, pretty quickly, I would say that, okay, that's where I'd look to, enter my position, stop loss below the low type. And once again, a short-term move here. But we could go as deep as honestly 113.7, which I'm just going to be pulling a Fibonacci retracement. All right. From our $98,000 low to the current high here. And while the gold pocket is usually where the ideal areas that we look to get that deeper retracement before continuation, when we get these really strong moves to the upside, we tend to get a more shallow retracement to the 382 most cases. So in this sense, I'd be looking to the 382 to get that next, real good support bounce. I would box this region off almost, and just stay, what is this, like a 0.5%, maybe 1% here. So it's about a 1.5% region. That's where I'd be looking for Bitcoin to come down to if we were going to get any type of, sweep of the low here this week, and then look for the continued move to the upside again, right? So down to maybe 113.7 to 115 area, get the bounce, look for the upside. Right. So something along these lines, and then we look to take it up higher. Now, I don't anticipate that this would be a huge move all in 1 week, but this is what I would be anticipating over the following weeks. And ultimately, I'm still targeting this AB equals CD pattern, which is the other reason why I state that, really looking at this as like a section. I'm not overly targeting 135 exactly, but that is definitely where I got my eyes on, right? Ultimately, we could see a push up towards that 132 to 135 that completes this AB equals CD pattern. All right, I have a time frame of September, which at this point is about 5 weeks away. So anytime in September doesn't necessarily have to be the beginning, doesn't have to be the end. I'm not overly married to that time frame, and I don't think you should be either. It's just something I have had since we were trading around these levels here. And if we get to this region at that time, and this is what allows me to activate and trade this setup a little bit more confidently, I'd suppose. So, and just the news flash, this is actually a relatively bearish setup. So if we did come up to this region, this is where I would imagine we get the next sizable retracement, which could be about 30% from that high. Really nothing to be too fearful about. That's honestly a great move if we get it up into that $135,000 area. So I do anticipate seeing that over the following weeks, basically to wrap up this summer, make it more of a bullish summer when most were almost anticipating it to be a summer lull. One of my favorite things to see when there is just straight contrarian results to what the overall sentiment is, right? Many tend to look for that sell in May and walk away type of outlook, and this has been quite the opposite, right? So I do foresee that we'll run it up into that region, and 30% at that point would not be fun. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure people would want, as we always see, start calling for bear markets and all this. We'd be looking at Q4 at that point, which is usually like October and all those keywords that really get everybody all hyped up. So to be walking into October with a 30% pullback, usually that just kind of demolishes everybody. So that's a little forward thinking at the moment, but I overall still just anticipate that, right? Looking for a slight pullback, maybe around 113 to 115. And then if we claim the current high at about 123,000, no reason we shouldn't see a move up to 130 to 135 in the coming weeks. Now, not only has Bitcoin reached new all-time highs, but the entire market technically is in price discovery right now. So this is the total market, including Bitcoin, which only a few times in history has actually been in price discovery mode like this, right? So very, very, very important thing to note here. And we got to really, I like to look back at some of these times here because this is where we've seen a really nice sizable bounce. This is the anchored VWAP from the overall low from 2022 FTX collapse. And so far, we've seen incredible support bounces off of this that have led to continuation to the upside. And in the Discord, when we were trading right into this, I highlighted this exact setup that we were looking to see a continued bounce, especially pair that with this time frame being just as fearful, if not more, than this one. And then going back, we've had nothing but fearful events at these supports each and every time. This last one of note before our tariff fears was the carry trade last year, right? So everybody expected the market to just completely melt down even lower than it already made it to, only to see the market completely rip to the upside. If you recall, we all were looking at the same type of fears back just a couple weeks back, just to see new all-time highs arrive quicker than anyone expected. We've now seen a commanding break above the all-time high here, hold on multiple daily timeframes. So as long as we are holding above that region, I target another leg up towards the $5.42 trillion mark, which is about a 40% move, I think, from even where we are now, which would be a very, very big move for the overall market, right? And if only 14% of that comes from Bitcoin as we push up to the 135 mark, that means a lot of altcoins are about to see some really good times. Total 2, another chart we've been hammering on for quite some time here. And as simple as this one is, I've kind of merged this with a simple old school, just cup and handle, merged with a couple of other things I look to normally, but this was just too clean. This was a nice rounded formation right to the high here. We got basically a textbook handle formation here. As this downward channel goes right into a key support at the gold pocket, which is derived from the low to the high. Gold pocket retracement, push up from that region. We had a support bounce off of our quarterly VWAP here, which you can see right there, that red line. And then the overall sentiment and the idea from me at least was I wanted to see this level claim. This was a huge yearly level. If we zoomed out to the yearly time frame, this is a huge yearly area. So to get above that was my more moderate area to start looking for this move to start unfolding. Obviously, the biggest one was when we were down here, but as time goes on, you have to look for some new regions to shift your attention to. So if this one was obviously the best play, we got to bounce out of this region, and then if we were trading into this area as resistance, you obviously could not look at that as overly bullish at that point until we flip that next support or that next resistance, sorry. And we've done that as well with a pretty commanding lead at this point. So it would be nothing to get a little back test of that and continue up. But overall, I target the altcoin market to see a sizable move as well, continuing up to the upside in the coming months, and honestly a little bit longer than that. But for now, we'll go with the monthly time frames. To add on top of that, we have our Bitcoin dominance completely melting to the downside, right? So obviously the rotation is occurring, at least at the moment. This doesn't necessarily spew huge end all be all reversal quite yet as far as confirmed. This very much could turn into something like that, but at the moment we could be seeing just something like we've seen each and every time here, right? Where we get a sizable retracement and then we just continue higher, right? It's not necessarily what we want to see for the altcoin market. All right. If you're a huge Bitcoin holder, then obviously that is definitely what you want to see. But short term, and when I say that at this point, I'm looking like the next 6 months. I do foresee that we would see, Bitcoin cooling off as far as the dominance goes. Altcoins kind of taking the reins for a bit. Starting off this quarter, I had 3 major levels to look to. We've lost all 3 of them in a hurry. So there's now 3 major resistances above us now. So once again, in a sense of looking at this chart going down, meaning it's good for altcoins. This is a good thing to see here, right? So we've got all things pointing in direction of the market still heading higher, and we have altcoins waking up. And just to retest on that first chart that I've ever shared here at the DataDash community, it was this ETH BTC pair back in February, and I was targeting a bottom for this, or a completion zone, in around March. Okay, and mind you, I was targeting this years ago, between December of 2024 and March 2025. So I had about a 90-day window of a completion zone. And so far, it looks like we bottomed out in April. So 1 month later, targeted years in advance. And what this is once again, the ETH measured against Bitcoin, which generally, if we're going, this is a bullish setup, by the way, with 2 major targets, 3 if you're considering the B point. Granted, it's the exact same area right here, but bullish reversal pattern, 6 years in the making. And this indicates that ETH is going to outperform Bitcoin for quite some time. And if that does occur, usually the altcoins go with it. So that's why I've been very, very bullish on Ethereum specifically in this market. And then, overall in the altcoins as well. So again, pullbacks are part of it. It's not just going to be up in a straight line from here, but the overall idea here, now looking back weeks later, and once again, I've been cultivating this whole move the entire time, and especially in the Discord, the Traders Club, right? So if you're interested in joining that, please be sure to check that out in our links. But yeah, so this is a good sign here, on top of the dominance for Bitcoin, on top of the total 2 market breaking out, the total market making a new all-time high. As I said before, the recipe for this market to continue higher is very strong and is very present right now. So no reason and no weakness quite yet. The short-term little pullbacks obviously are going to be there. There's going to be some little liquidation flushes and all those things that come with people coming into the market late. And then as when you get these small pullbacks, everybody gets very aggressive on the bearish side, and you get these disbelief rallies. It's a very interesting time frame. And I'll end this on the idea too that many are anticipating this year to be the end of the 4-year cycle for crypto and for Bitcoin. While that may be the case, as we don't know that quite yet, one thing that I like to highlight is that the 18 to 20-year housing market cycle, something that I've been watching for quite some time, and been kind of under the impression that I think that this is actually crypto's first 18 to 20-year cycle alongside the housing market. The last housing market cycle technically started around 2011. Bitcoin was born in 2009. Doesn't really have any chart data till 2011. Either way, in that time frame is when crypto was born. Both of them have aligned very well during this time period. And if that is the case, we should see actually a continued rally across all markets for the next 15 to 30 months, which is very much in line with my ETH BTC chart, which once again, looking at like a 1.5 year target or range to get to the targets. So while I'm not married to anything over extensively, that's just something I've been monitoring and managing for many, many years here. And as we get to the end of this year, it'll be interesting to see how things start to unfold. And I'll be here every step of the way. So if you enjoyed this content today, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you would like more real-time updates and breakdowns on everything you saw today and everything else that I have to offer, my educational pieces, my traditional market outlooks as well, be sure to join the Traders Club at our website, datadashpro.com. That's where you have access to either Nick's Dash Report or my Discord service. And we also offer a bundle where you get to enjoy both of them basically for the full DataDash experience. So as always, thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you all have a great remainder of your day. I'll see you all in the next video. And until then, everybody, cheers.